Good evening, everybody. Welcome here to Daytona International Speedway as it plays host to race number 9, the season finale of the debut season of the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. At the end of 60 laps here this evening, we're crowning ourselves a champion. 4 drivers mathematically eligible to hoist that championship trophy, some a little bit more long shots than others, but with the rather unorthodox point system, there could be some interesting scenarios by time we reach the checkered flag. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Lucas Cram. Lucas, it's the 4th and final time that these drivers are going to be here at Daytona. A little bit of experience under their belt at different versions of Daytona during the course of the season, but it's a super speedway. We always call these types of races wild card races. How difficult is it going to be for these guys, especially if your name is not Austin Grover, to strategize on how many points you need to be able to get the championship?
Yeah, definitely be very stressful here tonight under the course of 60 laps, as you mentioned in previous there. And interesting strategy, of course, as you mentioned, with the unorthodox point system. There's bonus points kind of all over the place. There's 5 bonus points to the pole, which David Duran, who's currently positioned in second behind us to go for the championship lead, he grabbed those 5 bonus points, burning the pole. But interesting strategy by Austin Grover. On the opposite hand, he decided not to qualify. He'll start in the 10th position, trying to go towards 10 bonus points through most positions gained. So there's stuff to follow all the way through it, and already started here with qualifying.
You already see the strategy kind of playing out there. Only 4 drivers taking time. Row 3 will have Cam Caldwell, Vincent Valvano, Garrett Gleason, Matthew Rodriguez in row 4, Kyle Lewis, Austin Grover back in row 5, and Jason Shuey will be rolling off from the 11th position here tonight. So plenty of opportunity mathematically still for drivers like Matthew Rodriguez and Mike Tellier to be able to get this championship. The points gap coming in tonight. Grover, 46 points over David Durand. Matthew Rodriguez, 61 points back, the only multi-time winner on the season, and picking up the victory last week to give himself a last-ditch effort here tonight. Mike Tellier, 79 points back. And talk about that strategy, Mike Tellier, you could see out there during qualifying, he was trying to get himself the pole position, Durand sniping it away from him. On the flip side, Matthew Rodriguez, another of our long shot drivers, he decided not to qualify, starting at the back so he can try and get those 10 valuable bonus points for picking up the most positions during the course of the evening. But because Austin Grover has a lower I rating than Matthew Rodriguez, he's going to start 2 positions back. So Matthew Rodriguez has to hope that he can finish at least 2, maybe 3 positions ahead of the 83 car here tonight to get those 10 bonus points.
Yeah, it's going to be very close, especially starting from that 8th position. But the green flag is out here for the championship finale at Daytona, and David Duran and Mike Tiller are going to lead the front row here as Michael Norman are going to try to get behind him and push that race leader.
I was told here this evening as well by some of those drivers of the long shots that they are going to be racing maybe the most aggressive they have all season. If they've got the opportunity to take it 3 wide, they will go for it because they basically got to go out there and dominate here tonight. They got to get to the front, stay at the front, get the max bonus points that they possibly can.
Yeah, and that's definitely adding on to the already insane aggression we've seen out of these guys the last few weeks at Talladega and so forth. And these guys have been absolutely pushing it every single lap. And of course, we got to mention as well, even though the apron here at Daytona compared to Talladega last week is flat, there is no yellow line rule in the series. So if they go down there on the back straightaway or the front stretch, it is totally inbounds and legal. So we're probably not going to see that too much here tonight compared to last week without that banking down there to assist them. But already in the first lap here, Mike Taylor picks up that bonus point.
Mentioned David Durand getting the pole position, so those 5 bonus points heading his way at this point in time. The gap would be 41 points between himself and Austin Grover for the championship. So if David Durand were to win this race, he would need Austin Grover to finish in the 6th position or worse. But a lot of moving pieces here, a lot of drivers in the field that aren't in the battle for the championship that still want to find victory lane for either the second or for many of them the first time this year. There's Michael Norman in that Hot Wheels Mustang. It's been a while since we've seen him in a Sunday Super Speedway Series race. He'd love to be able to end out the season with a W. Steven Doziak Jr. on the top side, second on the top side behind Mike Tellier. He's a guy who's had some good finishes the last couple of weeks, but still searching for his first victory.
And add on to that list, Kyle Lewis last week came off turn number 4 as the race leader, and unfortunately for him, just got not the race leader, he was actually second behind Mike Tiller, who was the race leader, and had to run to try to make the pass on him, got some contact with Matthew Rodriguez, and unfortunately that one slipped away from him. He's been close several times this season, dating back to the Talladega race before that as well, so he definitely would like to get that monkey off his back and close out the season on a high note here.
Not going to be difficult to see Austin Grover, the points leader here tonight. New livery on that 83, that bright red car there, fourth on the outside line behind Vincent Valvano, a former winner of the season. Top side got the advantage. Steven Doziak Jr. was able to push Mike Tellier to the lead. He then drops down to the double yellow line and will lead the field out of 4.
Mike Tellier coming to this event was the 4th out of those 4 championship contenders, and now you see David Duran now switch back up high side now, and Steven Doziak Jr. back on his rear bumper. He'll actually take the race lead, and they both should clear Mike Tellier down here on the inside into turn number 1.
And so far already in the first few laps of this race, Steven Doziak Jr. has proved to be the most valuable pusher. He's gotten Tellier to lead. He's pushed Duran back out in front. Now he's looking for somebody to be his pusher so he can get out in clean air. Looks like Michael Norman going to make a little bit of an exit here from the lead pack, drop towards the rear of the field. Back with Jason Shuey and Cam Caldwell.
Yeah, probably a smart decision. We've seen Michael Norman pull that strategy before at Talladega and other places, and obviously with these guys up front, right there in front of these championship contenders, swap the lead back and forth, trying to get everything they can. Probably a pretty good decision here on his part to try to just stay nice and clean.
With Duran continuing to show the way. New livery for him as well, the Looney Tunes colors. Of course, a Jeff Gordon throwback on his 24. He's going to have the advantage by a car length over a side-by-side battle for second. Tellier on the bottom, Doziak Jr. on the top. And you got to wonder, I mean, we talked about this the last couple of weeks, but even more so here tonight for even Matthew Rodriguez, Mike Tellier especially, those guys that need to get up to the front, stay at the front. They might want to have some friends to help keep them up there as well. You have to wonder how much diplomatic services were going on, not only tonight, but maybe even during the course of the week after these drivers left Talladega last week.
Matthew Rodriguez back there on the backstretch. He poked his nose up inside of Austin Grover, 2 of the championship contenders, and looked to make it 3 wide. And on lap 5 through 6, he decided better of it and backed out. But he, that just shows the need to get to the front, obviously, and get up there. That's very frustrating thing with these plate tracks is when the field's bunched up 2 and 3 wide. It's very difficult to make positions up and get yourself towards the front. It's not very much you can do. So obviously he feels the pressure to try to get himself up front, get some of those lap sled bonus points, and now he swaps back in behind Kyle Lewis in the inside lane.
Grover, if he gets passed by Matthew Rodriguez here, it's going to drop him down to 8th place, and now he's going to move up another spot as he pulls up the back bumper of Vincent Valvano. Right now, it keeps fluctuating between 3 to 5 positions gained for Austin Grover, who started back in the 10th position. Really relying on those bonus points this season has Austin Grover, and he might pull a Matt Crafton here this season with getting all those bonus points, being the most consistent driver, winning this championship without visiting victory lane a single time this season.
Yeah, we're talking about those guys who like to get a win who aren't in the championship battle. But yeah, Austin Grover just done a fantastic job proving that consistency can still win you championships. And each and every single week, he just runs up front. Hasn't quite reached victory lane, but obviously has always been very close and very consistent. So obviously, probably a little bit more of a lenient race here for him tonight. Probably not going to be quite as aggressive to get to victory lane with the cushion he comes into tonight with. But definitely up front already. Now in the third car on the outside lane and trying to go himself up towards the front.
I was told that the strategy here tonight for Austin Grover to be able to win the championship is basically just survive, which sounds easy, but it's a super speedway. So, it's saying it's one thing, doing it's another, especially with the action we've seen during the course of this year at iRacing Superspeedway, several versions of Daytona and Talladega.
Yeah, most definitely. And now you see Garrett Gleason now. He actually brought Kyle Lewis up there with them. They both have a run on the outside. An interesting thing here, I just noticed Mike Tellier not really showing too much aggression right at the moment. He's kind of just going to ride in behind David Duran as then Matthew Rodriguez, who we saw making it at 3 wide a couple times early in the back of the pack. He gets to run up to 3rd place, and now he's looking to try to get around his teammate Mike Tellier for that second position.
I got to wonder for these guys, I mean, would there be some way they'd be relayed the information of who's led how many laps? Because for the case of Mike Tellier, you got to think he wants to get up here, lead the most laps of this race, get those bonus points, but being content to ride behind David Duran is giving the 24 more of an opportunity to get those bonus points than the 97.
Yeah, that's actually pretty surprising to me here that he's decided, especially coming in as the guy who needs to make up everything in every single lap, he needs to try to get as many points as possible. And now Matthew Rodriguez actually will get back in front of him. And I almost question maybe, with these two being teammates, we saw them work together at the finish last week to get the 97, the victory. I almost wonder if maybe they believe that Matthew Rodriguez, since he's a good, 18 points above Matthew Rodriguez, he might have a better chance of the championship. Is now, out of nowhere, the championship battle spoiler, Cam Caldwell on the apron. I said we probably wouldn't see it too often. He goes down there. He's going to try to make that move around Mike Tellier. Thinks better of it. Falls back in line now, the 5th car in line.
He moved from 5th up to 3rd at one point there, but then had to back out of the throttle, had the block thrown on him by Austin Grover, got pinned down there by Matthew Rodriguez, and now drops back to where he was. Big run, though, coming with a push from Michael Norman. You know, we ended up hearing a lot the analogy of the beach ball. You pull right up to somebody's bumper, it's like there's a wall of air between your front bumper and their back bumper, and it propels you forward. That's what we saw right there with the 12 of Cam Caldwell and the 21 of Michael Norman. Problem for Caldwell is he had nowhere to take that momentum through the tri-oval.
Mike Taylor now showing some aggression and trying to get around Durand, and Durand already showcasing that he's not going to get that up very easily. He's blocking low and high. Mike Taylor actually follows him back down on the inside and now give that top side up to Austin Grover, who has a push from Matthew Rodriguez, and they're trying to get some help back there with Garrett Gleason.
We talked about the 4 drivers eligible for the championship for a moment there. They were running 1st through 4th. Now Austin Grover, Matthew Rodriguez on the top side starting to fade a little bit. Cam Caldwell lined up behind Mike Tellier. He's got Michael Norman and Steven Doziak Jr. down there with him. Right now, though, David Durand for sure looking in the rearview mirror a lot more than he's looking out the windshield, as a lot of moving and shaking going on behind him.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm still really surprised with the fact that Mike Tellier has decided to kind of just stay consistently riding in line behind him. I'm pretty content to just kind of continue to push him, let him lead these laps. It's a very interesting, decision there on his part. I almost wonder maybe they're working together to try to help David Durand, since he's a much better chance coming in, only 46 points behind Austin Grover for the championship lead. So obviously they're just kind of working together right now, and that's not really letting anybody get around them at the moment.
Now, this is the second time that the drivers have been to the night version of Daytona during the course of this season. A problem back there for Austin Grover? He was all of a sudden really slow. He might have actually just gotten out of Dodge, dropping back here with Garrett Gleason, but man, he was dropping like a stone for a moment there, so I thought he had a problem.
He did get on the outside. Excuse me there. He did get on the outside retaining wall, actually, off turn number 4. Tagged the safer barrier pretty good with the right side of the car. Not sure if he just was trying to figure something out at the moment and kind of wasn't paying attention, but unfortunately for him, he actually has now lost the draft. But Garrett Gleason back there with him. They're going to try to catch back up with this pack, but really early on championship implications there for the points leader.
You can see it even with our camera shot here, focused mostly on the left side of the car. You can see the ripple just above the right front tire and around that right front hood area. So yeah, damage there early on for the points that are coming into this race. Mentioned the strategy for him was just to survive, and he's the first one, at least at this point in time, that Daytona has dealt a little bit of damage. Of course, these drivers do have a faster pair to fall back on. We've seen in some races they've been able to last until the second half of the race before taking the faster pair on. In other races, we've seen them only make it 15 laps and have to take on that faster pair. Right now, these guys have done a pretty good job of keeping it clean. Looks like we're going to maybe make it about 15 laps in before we see our first caution, but as mentioned, second time that we've come to the night version of Daytona this season. Matthew Rodriguez was the winner here the last time out. Of course, he didn't stay on the racetrack to be able to take that checkered flag. The top 3 or 4 wrecked in front of him off of turn 4. He dove to the infield grass here to cross the start-finish line to pick up what would be the first of 2 victories on the season. Of course, we had the season opener at Daytona. That was the daytime version where Jason Gracias went to victory lane. Then we had that very interesting Legacy Daytona race where Garrett Gleason was able to make the move out of turn 4 to pick up his and only at this point win on the year. So Daytona's been pretty exciting no matter what version we go to. Only fitting it opened up the season and it ends off the season with the championship on the line.
Yeah, and definitely one disappointing here tonight. Now you see Mike Tellier finally decided it was go time. Oh, about got turned right there by Matthew Rodriguez. What a save for the number 97 machine there going into turn number 3. But I was about to mention he decided it was go time to get around the 24. Got that push from Matthew Rodriguez and was bound for the race lead there. And unfortunately after that we'll lose some positions, but definitely could have been a lot worse for both of those guys.
I think a big reason why we didn't see Tellier step out as early as we would have expected is he felt if he went up there, he was going to just drop back. There was no run generated on that top side yet. Saw him move up there when I think it was Doziak Jr. and Valvano were making something happen. Had to tuck back in line when that all broke up, and he saw Rodriguez coming on the top side to jump up there. But as we saw, nearly lost it for his troubles. Now Valvano's going to jump up to the top. He's got a big push. Look at the crossovers. Doziak at the bottom. Oh, Rodriguez is spinning. The grass. Kyle Lewis as well in the 18. I don't think they're going to hit anything.
And no caution flag. Oh, there it is.
I was going to say there should have been a yellow flag. It was a multi-car incident. And there is the caution coming out for the first time here tonight. One of the championship four there, Matthew Rodriguez, collected up in this one, but the saving grace was the contact from car to car was really all sustained by the two drivers spinning through the infield grass. I don't think either one of them hit the inside wall.
Yeah, luckily for them, they both were able to just kind of skate through the grass fairly unscathed, and that was all kind of started by a block up there for the race lead. David Duran saw that high side with a huge run, and in third place in line, Steven Doziak Jr. That kind of spooked him. He jumped up out of the gas to try to avoid running over Vince Valvano in the 38 right in front of him, and that just kind of caused a chain reaction. Rodriguez got run over there by Mike Teller, who couldn't see any of that happening. Unfortunately, it got in the back of him, and Kyle Lewis, also the innocent victim there. But yeah, just as you mentioned, luckily, both those cars not too severe of damage. They both spun around, and we've heard from these guys. These cars are pretty well built, pretty much tanks around these super speedways, and so luckily they should be all right in decent position here. But definitely not what you want to see this early on.
I've heard of the term chain bumping, and I'm almost wondering if that was what came into play. You talked about the fact that Mike Tellier was pushing Matthew Rodriguez. It almost seemed like he pushed Rodriguez into the back bumper of Doziak, and when Doziak made the move to the inside, it kind of carried the front nose of Matthew Rodriguez down in that direction.
Yeah, looking at the replay there in depth, look at the 55, kind of had to jump out of the gas to avoid that checkup, but it was just unfortunate time, as you mentioned. Mike Tellier was pushing Matthew Rodriguez, and I think it was more of a checkup up front than it was Mike Tellier causing it, but it definitely was just unfortunate timing with both of those kind of collapsing on each other.
Mentioned the fact that neither of those drivers, as we saw there, hitting any walls, but there was some pretty good damage to the left rear quarter panel of Matthew Rodriguez, and then Rodriguez's right front made contact with the left front on Kyle Lewis. So both of those drivers sustaining some front end damage with their spin through the infield grass. Pit road was open. Garrett Gleason, I believe he came down pit road, did not take service. We'll probably see him in the next time. This is kind of a classic Garrett Gleason move that we've seen during the course of the year. Looks like Mike Tellier is actually be the one leaving pit road and bringing us to the restart as the leader. But we got quite a number of drivers that are actually spending a little bit of extra time on pit road. Austin Grover, of course, probably his team attending to that right front. Cam Caldwell, Jason Shuey, a little bit extended stay on pit road for those two. And then, no surprise, obviously, Matthew Rodriguez and Kyle Lewis with a little extra TLC done to their race cars after bringing out this first yellow flag.
As about to mention, obviously, plate tracks, the chances of going green start to finish are very, very low, but we had documented there Austin Grover had lost that lead draft after getting the outside retaining wall, and so obviously that caution definitely a saving grace for him. He can now pit under caution to fix that damage without having to pit under green or anything along those incidents, and luckily for him, he's now back in the draft and actually gained some positions after those guys pitted for damage.
One thing we should bring up here in terms of those drivers that are trying to get the 10 bonus points for advancing their starting position to the highest finishing position here tonight, it is possible for drivers to share those points. That actually took place last week at Talladega Superspeedway when Mike Tellier picked up the victory and Matthew Rodriguez finished behind him. Both of them gained the same number of spots in that race, so both of them cashed in on the 10 bonus points. So that is a possibility here tonight for our Championship 4. They don't necessarily have to be number one as far as the driver that gained the most spots. They can be tied with another driver for most spots gained and still share in those 10 valuable bonus points at the conclusion of this race.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to keep track of that to see who get the bonus points at the end of this thing. But Mike Tellier, I did notice he does have some very minor front-end damage to the number 97 machine. But as we saw last week, when he got that pretty early on, it doesn't really seem to affect your car too much. As I mentioned earlier, these cars seem like they don't get affected too much aerodynamically from the damage, even at the plate track. So hopefully for him, he should be all right. But I am intrigued to see if that does hurt anything as far as the temps go. When he's tucked up underneath somebody and trying to push him for a little bit.
Yeah, he was involved in, one or two or even three incidents before he took on his faster pair, all with damage to the front end, and that car still was able to fight its way up to the front of the field. He'll have David Durand alongside of him for this restart. Vincent Valvano and Steven Doziak Jr. row 2. Michael Norman in row 3. I believe the 24-38, correction, the 97-38, 55 and 21. They went with fuel only. David Durand went with a 4-tire pit stop. Matthew Rodriguez will line up in 6th. Austin Grover, Jason Shuey, Kyle Lewis, Cam Caldwell. That's the completion of your top 10 with Garrett Gleason, who is just on pit road there at the 1 to green. He's going to restart in the 11th position. Green flag ready to fly once again. 42 laps to go here at Daytona. All 4 of your championship contenders still running, all still on the lead lap, and more importantly, all still did not use that faster pair, still have that mulligan intact.
Great restart there by David Duran on the outside lane all by himself. Still does not quite have Steven Dozo Jr. up to his rear bumper. Is now, it looks like he'll get some help through the center of turn number 2. Mike Tellier actually gets a run with Vince Valvano pushing him, number 38 Ford right behind him. But pretty good restart there with David Duran, and obviously showcasing pretty early on that when you go in green, it's a little bit easy to kind of jump out on the outside.
We saw Steven Doziak Jr. push David Duran to the front on the top side in the early stages of this race. It was when Mike Tellier was leading the inside line. We'll see if there's going to be a case of deja vu here there. We've got Matthew Rodriguez up on that top side as well in the Steak and Shake Toyota. Michael Norman's the third car on the inside line there with Vincent Valvano. 2 Fords in the field here this evening. Those blue ovals lined up nose to tail behind the Toyota Camry of Mike Tellier.
Matthew Rodriguez already back up for the third car on the outside lane. Obviously, the accident did not scare him one bit, and Kyle Lewis is actually right there behind him trying to help that out, that lane on the outside. Out now, Austin Grover using that saving grace from that caution flag. He's now back up in this pack, and still fourth car on the inside. Doesn't show too much aggression yet. It's actually Michael Norman ducks down the inside out of his way to pull to the back of the field. So now he'll be the third car down the inside lane heading to turn number 3, but definitely going to try to get some bonus points at least just to secure a lap lead, get those 2 bonus points to make sure that he doesn't do, doesn't lose the championship lead by taking it a little too easy.
Really surprised that Michael Norman bailing out in that inside line didn't hurt Mike Tellier's bid to go for the race lead, because normally you end up having the numbers game dissipate one line, the momentum goes away, but Austin Grover kept his foot in the throttle, went around Michael Norman, pulled right up to the back bumper of Vincent Valvano, so no momentum was lost on that inside line. Good heads-up driving there by the 83 to keep the momentum moving forward, and Mike Tellier is almost clear of David Duran. Duran going to battle back on that top side. This is some good racing for the top position between 2 championship hopefuls.
Yeah, Valvano fell off the back bumper right there through the center of 1 and 2 off of Mike Tellier. So now David Duran actually, he ducks down in line after that push from Steven Doziak Jr. He gets himself out now in front of Mike Tellier. We saw this earlier. I'm curious to see how aggressive Mike Tellier is here to try to get back around the number 24 machine.
See if a run generates on the top side. If it does Tellier jump up there? Looking at the 55 of Steven Doziak Jr., Matthew Rodriguez, Kyle Lewis, and Michael Norman. Right now, Doziak alongside of Vincent Valvano. Woo! I don't know if that was Tellier getting loose or if that was the 38 getting loose, but somebody twitched a little bit there on the inside line, and thought for a moment someone might be going around.
Yeah, luckily everybody managed to hang on to that exit of the tri-oval here at Daytona. It's very easy to catch that yellow line coming up out of the corner, and unfortunately, with a banking difference here between the actual racing surface and then the apron, which isn't banked at all, it's very easy to upset your car. So now you see Vince Valvano actually, he jumps up to the outside lane, tries to go around the outside of Mike Tellier, and falls back as Matthew Rodriguez kind of swapped positions with him there from the outside lane behind Steven Doziak Jr. So now the momentum shifts the inside, and the first 4 cars down the inside lane are clear at the top side.
Now you've got your 4 championship contenders lined up nose to tail, first through the 4th position. Once again, Durand, Tellier, Grover, and Matthew Rodriguez. Then side by side for the 5th position. Let's see what happens here with the top 4. Do they remain content to ride in line? Does somebody step out here, try to formulate a high line? Looks like for the time being down the back straightaway, everybody's going to stay in line. Tellier shows the nose a little bit there on the top side, tucks back behind the 24. For the time being, they're going to go through 3 and 4, all nose to tail.
Cam Caldwell there, the huge run on the outside. Kyle Lewis jumped over to try to take it, and it looked like Cam was willing to take him 3 wide, and Kyle kind of shut the door on him. They about made contact there. And back in that 5th position, Michael Norman now gets to run the inside. Top 4 cars in just a tiny breakaway at the moment, but that would definitely change when that 21 gets a push here from the 12. He'll get a huge run, and we'll see if he makes any move here in turn number 1.
Now Austin Grover in that 3rd position, up 7 spots from his starting spot. So he is firmly in control at this point in time of those 10 valuable bonus points. Durand, of course, has the 5 points for getting the pole position here tonight, and we're going to have to wait and see when all is said and done where the finishing positions are for these respective drivers to be able to work the calculators and see who's going to come out on top, because there's still a long ways to go. We haven't even hit halfway in this race. Lap 30 will be the halfway mark of this Daytona event, and I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot more cautions flying before this thing is over. A lot of the yellow flags during the course of the season have taken place in the latter half of the race, but to the credit of these drivers, the last 2 races have run in regulation. We've not gone into overtime, so we'll see if that's going to be the case here tonight in the finale.
We'll shake up there at the front. Looks like Austin Grover, Matthew Rodriguez, and Mike Taylor both got to the outside lane and around David Duran. They pushed Mike Taylor to the race lead. Now down in front of the number 24 machine is the 83 and the 57 are going to try to continue to run this outside lane and get a run. But now David Duran is clear with Michael Norman in tow behind him, and they both will be clear off turn number 4, but no outside lane yet at the moment to kind of assist them. But you mentioned those bonus points, the most position gain being worth 10. The most laps led in this event, as you see David Duran now shoot back to the outside. Obviously, he's led the most laps in this event, and the bonus points value for that is also 10. And so he actually got the pole in addition to that with 5 bonus points. So he's obviously trying everything he can to lead every single lap to collect those bonus points and make sure that he can try to secure as many points as possible to try to close that gap and heading into the end of this race.
It's huge. And of course, David Duran trying to get his second win on the season, one earlier on this year at the first iRacing Superspeedway event. And if he goes to victory lane, Grover finishes in second. That's 15 points right there that's gained. 75 points paid out to the winner. Then it's down to 60 points for the driver that finishes in the runner-up position. Another 10 points back to 50 points for the driver that finishes in third. So huge gaps. It's not like your normal point system of 1 point per position. Up inside the top 5 at least, it's about 10 points separating each position.
Yeah, it's that league spread point system, I believe, where the winner gets a certain amount of points and then last place gets a certain amount. And depending on the amount of cars they have, it always separates differently. And so obviously that position is going to be worth a lot more than only 11 cars here tonight. So they have to keep track of how that all plays out. But we keep mentioning this points battle, and obviously there's a lot more guys in this field who aren't in contention for the championship. Cam Caldwell, he's done a fantastic job so far, coming up on the halfway point so far in this event with Steven Dozak Jr. right in there in line behind him. They're both obviously trying to spoil this championship battle, both looking for their first win of the season and just try to, see if they can get a win here at Daytona.
How difficult is it when you are a non-playoff contender in a super speedway series of all places, because everybody is racing in close proximity? Obviously, you want to go out there and win this race, but you don't want to be the deciding factor in who wins the championship, and we've seen that one little mistake in a super speedway can cost a lot of drivers a good finish. So, how do you keep yourself mentally focused of, my job is to win this race, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I race these championship competitors with respect and not mess up their scenario of trying to be able to big picture race?
Yeah, you definitely have to tone it down just a little bit, not too much. Obviously, racing out there for a race win, and it's a plate track, as you mentioned. Everybody's in really close proximity, and definitely don't want to cause too much issue, but at the same time, you're out there racing, you're going to try to do everything you can, and as long as you aren't making super aggressive moves and putting those guys in really bad positions or even causing several incidents, it's, everybody kind of understands the situation that they're also in, not battling for that championship. So Cam Caldwell, I feel like he's done a fantastic job now with Jason Shu and behind him as well. Both those guys still not racing for that championship, or one of those 4 contenders for it at least. And they're also racing for more bonus points to try to get themselves higher up in the points to try to set themselves up for a good finish of the season. And so there's definitely a lot of mental game, and that's exactly why plate racing is so difficult. Is that it's not quite as physical as it is in some other tracks, but especially when you factor in all the championship points and everything, as we have Mike Taylor on the apron there, trying to get underneath Austin Grover, about some contact, but he'll get back in line. The Austin Grover just kind of gave him the space there, but definitely more of a mental game than anything here at these plate tracks.
You talk about Cam Caldwell, Jason Shuey trying to get themselves some bonus points, and right now they would be in line to possibly get some bonus points. 5 points given out to the driver that has the fastest lap of the race. Right now, that would be Jason Shuey, who has a 46.816. Just behind him with a 929 is Cam Caldwell. They're the only 2 drivers so far here this evening that have broken into the 46s in terms of lap times.
And nothing to keep track of, too. Jason Shuey was the only guy to start behind Austin Grover back in that 11th position. And when he was up to the 3rd position there, he was gaining 8 positions already on the racetrack, well ahead of Austin Grover. So that definitely could shake up if he steals those 10 bonus points. And now he's actually in the outside wall in turn number 3. And unfortunately, it looks like he might lose the draft here. Big mistake. Trying to get out of the way, it looked like. Taking it nice and easy to try to get the back of the pack. And unfortunately, got on the outside, retaining the wall, and he'll fall back behind this draft now.
overstepping the cushion just the least little bit. To your point, trying to be courteous, get out of the way of these drivers who had taken him 3 wide through 3 and 4, but just a little too high into that wall. And yes, he is definitely dropping away from the lead pack. Right now, he's running about 4 to 5 miles per hour slower than the guys up here in this lead draft. So certainly not what Jason Shuey wanted to have happen, and now he kind of falls into the same category as Austin Grover did about 15 laps ago. Wants to see a caution come out so that way he can get back up to this lead group.
Yeah, most definitely. And obviously, luckily at a plate track, you can bank on that in the last half of the race. You're probably almost guaranteed to have a caution flag fly to help assist you in getting back up the pack. But now that outside lane, unfortunately, just kind of dies out with the 83 and the 38 up there. Not really much help besides them two to get that field towards the front. And now Austin Grover had to tuck back in line about the 7th car in line on the inside. And now maybe these guys would just try to log some laps, at least for a time being, for a short period of time, just to try to make sure that they can, make a little bit further without having to get caught up in a wreck and using their fast repair. And obviously David Duran, he likes to see that in his rearview mirror. He can just continue to hug that inside yellow line and pick up those bonus points, which I feel like halfway at this point in the race, he's almost all but locked up with how many laps he's led.
If this race ended right now, Durand would be your champion. He would be ahead of Austin Grover in the point stands, with Grover right now in the 6th position. That would only net him 30 points. David Duran, if he were to win this race, on top of the 10 bonus points for leading the most laps and the 5 bonus points for getting the pole, that'd be a total of 90 points right there that he would net. And he came into this race only 46 points behind Austin Grover. Still, though, half this race left to go. And I know I'm kind of poking the bear here, but I'm going to have to ask it anyway, because this is about the longest run we've seen the drivers on during the course of this season. Is there any possibility that the season finale at Daytona with a championship on the line could even see pit road play a factor with green flag pit stops?
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild if we see these guys make green flag pit stops. And to your point, I'm not entirely sure if we've seen that at all so far this season. And so that definitely could be a huge shakeup with speeding penalties and everything else included there. Austin Grover, Bell got up into the Garrett Gleason right there, and a good save by him. He kind of backed out of it, and luckily he'll stay in the pack as well. David Duran with a huge block up front on Vincent Vavano, who's on the outside lane. And obviously, David Duran, as he proved last week at Talladega too, he is not one to let anybody around that number 24 machine for the race leads. Now Vincent Vavano peeks and noses to the outside. He'll get the run, but now off turn number 2 with Cam Caldwell pushing that 24. Looks like 24 David Duran will actually get clear once again and continue to hold on that race lead.
Duran trying to do everything he can to keep everyone behind him, trying to win this championship in dominating fashion. Got a couple drivers fading to the back there. Austin Grover, who had that near miss with Gleason. Doziak Jr. is now faded to the back there as well. I believe that Doziak and Gleason are both teammates, so maybe a little bit of strategy there for the two of them, falling to the back and maybe getting the same sense that I'm getting, especially with that block we saw of David Duran. These guys are starting to get a little bit more aggressive, maybe getting closer to those green flag pit stops, gets drivers a little bit more antsy and a little bit more aggressive in the moves they make. And I think those guys that drop to the back are thinking, yeah, we don't want to be up here in this storm at this point in time.
Yeah, for sure. I just have to continue wondering about Austin Grover. He's kind of taking the methodical approach of just trying to hang on to that points lead, but taking it nice and easy. You see Michael Norman there jump on the apron to get back behind all these guys. But unfortunately for him, I don't believe he's picked up a lap led so far in this event, which is also worth 2 bonus points. And so if he fails to do that by the end of the race, obviously we still have a long ways to go, and it's very easy to pick up just a single bonus point, or a single lap led, and get those bonus points. But if he fails to do that, that's a 2-point swing right there. And while it doesn't sound like a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, that could come down to winning and losing the championship. So definitely has to make sure he tries to garner that single lap lead and just check out those bonus points to help himself out.
Big news here for the TNR Sunday Super Speedway Series as well this past week, announcing that there will be a second season. So we will have a defending champion when we start out the new season, which will begin on November the 14th. That schedule going to include a doubleheader at Talladega, as well as a Dash for Cash event at iRacing Super Speedway. So some new things going on there with the upcoming schedule, but still got to finish out this season, though, and you got 4 drivers that want to be that defending champion when the new season starts on November 14th.
Yeah, most definitely, and that adds even more pressure to these guys who get to reach victory lane as well. They'd love to reach get that monkey off their back, reach victory lane at the end of this season and make sure they can set themselves up for next season. And it's always a fun time to have another season kind of guaranteed before this one even ends. Make sure that you're racing again in the following season and get more opportunities for chase and checker flags. But definitely, still not done with this one. We got 24 laps to go here, and green flag pit stops, as you mentioned, probably most likely on the horizon if we stay green here. And a lot of these guys got to be trying to set themselves up for it. Seeing Cam Caldwell just kind of be content and riding behind David Duran. He's probably going to follow him down pit road, and they're going to pit together to try to make sure that as many cars as possible to all pit together. And obviously, with David Duran leading this entire time, though, he didn't have a lot less fuel than the rest of these guys out behind him who have been in the draft, kind of lifting every now and then. And so I'm intrigued to see if his teammates are guaranteed to try to pit with him and help him out as much as possible, or if he kind of has to pit with less cars compared to the rest of the field.
Unfortunately, I don't have the data on my end, but what do you think? 38 laps in, I would say it's safe to say David Duran's led at least 30 of those 38 laps, so he's got those 10 bonus points locked up at this point.
Yeah, that is sure. Yeah, halfway through this event, definitely probably most likely locked up. As you see Austin Grover get a little aggressive. He goes to the outside lane up there in front of Kyle Lewis, trying to get himself up towards the front here before we have the pit stops come up here and try to make sure he can get be the one who leads the field down pit road. And unfortunately for him, not quite the help he needs. Kyle Lewis in behind him. He kind of lost his help as well behind him, Vince Valvano and all those guys. And this is kind of that position where it's difficult to make positions up and make those passes because everybody's pretty much content knowing those pit stops on the line. They kind of want to just get there nice and clean and make sure they set themselves up in the inside lanes. You don't want to get caught out on the outside lane either. So now he actually tucks back in line. Got Matthew Rodriguez, and now the top 6 cars single follow if he turns 1 and 2.
You made a statement earlier, and you are absolutely correct. The entirety of this season, these drivers are yet to make a green flag pit stop. So with that being said, these drivers aren't necessarily aware of the lifting points for other drivers trying to get down to pit road speed. How difficult is it going to be for traffic control if these guys are all going to be coming to pit lane in different groups?
Yeah, it's honestly everything in these plate tracks, and obviously here in F1 we ran the Superspeedway series. We ran a couple seasons, and it was pretty much all about green flag pit stops. Everybody in the league knew exactly what they were doing, and it really could help gain or lose you a ton of time. And obviously, these plate cars, they don't slow down quite as well. The brakes aren't set up for braking because it's a plate track. You only use braking to pit, and so obviously it's going to be a lot more difficult than these guys might imagine. You have to make sure that you take it more cautious than you do aggressive, because even though it's very tempting to see the cars in front of you slowing down and try to push it as far as you can to get in as many positions as possible, it's also extremely easy to get caught out on that braking power and to just barely overshoot trying to slow down to 55 miles an hour. And so see some almost a contact back there, but some of these guys hold on to it, and the aggression level is probably picking up here with the stops in the way.
I was absolutely ready for a wreck at the front. That right front quarter panel of Vincent Valvano almost got into the left rear of the 55 of Dosiak Jr. I thought he was going to hook him, hence the noise you just heard right there. I was kind of clenching up for these guys. I thought for certain that was going to be our second caution of the evening, but they keep it together for the moment.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those so far during this event, and obviously we already had one accident kind of get knocked out of the way, and so these guys being a little aggressive. And that's another thing too, when they're up in the outside lane like this, Vince Valvano is going to make sure he's glued to the rear bumper of the number 55 machine for as long as he possibly can be to try to get him out front, make sure he gets clear before they have the shoot down pit road, which is obviously off turn number 4 on the inside. And so obviously if you get caught up in the outside lane, you can't pit with the rest of the field. It's going to be a lot more difficult to try to get your group down pit road in an efficient amount of time.
This group is about to cross the line to complete their 24th lap on this stint. It's the longest green flag run we have had all season. And if you told me that we were going to have our longest green flag run in the season finale with a championship on the line, I would have told you were crazy, but it's happening. We are on the eve of possible green flag pit stops as a result here, and neither line's giving an inch. Dosiak Jr. continues to get alongside of David Duran, who's going to jump up now to the top, leaving Cam Caldwell. Is this because the 12 might be hitting pit road?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't heard anything yet over the radio, which they usually will call out here during pit stops with the amount of time you have to get off the racetrack. But David Duran, once again, just continuing to try to protect that outside lane. He actually gets a run now from the 55 machine. He'll lead this lap once again, just to further earn those bonus points and lock up the most laps led, which is, as you point a few laps ago mentioned, obviously he's pretty much got that locked up entirely officially now. And so now Steven Dosiak Jr. going to continue to push him, and the biggest thing for David Duran here to try to make sure he can do is just protect from Austin Grover to lead this lap, so getting any bonus points And so now he gets the push with Steven Dozak Jr. on the outside lane. He'll probably jump back down in front of Cam Caldwell here, going into turn number 3, which he does right there. And so now he sets himself up on the inside once again for these pit stops.
This is something we've seen David Duran do really well during the course of the season. The ability to recognize where the run is coming from and to be able to halt it. He did this in the season opener at Daytona, where maybe he should have won that race. He was leading coming back to the white flag, got punted into the infield grass and brought it home in the 7th or 8th position. He also led a good portion of the race at the legacy version of Daytona. So he's been very good out in front here at this 2.5-mile superspeedway. Yet to win here, and tonight could be his night, as just about every block he's been able to put on the top side or the bottom has worked out in his favor so far.
Yeah, definitely going to continue to try to control those lines, as you mentioned. And now Steven Dozak Jr., another run on the outside lane, gets a huge run. And at this point in time, it was probably the last time we're going to see David Duran block, at least for the time being during this run, knowing the pit stops are on the horizon here. And Steven Dozak Jr. continuing to get pushed there by Vince Alvano and Kyle Lewis in line behind him and trying to get themselves clear down in front of this inside lane to set themselves up as well. And so David Duran got turned on the apron right there a little bit, but Cam Caldwell just caught his left sides on the yellow line. As mentioned earlier with the 38 machine, that yellow line is very easy to catch and they kind of get caught up on the flat part of the apron. So good save of both those guys. That could have been a lot worse.
Saw the whole inside line check up. Mike Tellier started to move towards the middle in case those two got together. You saw the 83 of Austin Grover back off a little bit as well. Everybody recovers. Everybody keeps going. Valvano continuing to try and help Dozak Jr. on the top. But boy, they lost a lot of ground down that back straightaway there. Mike Tellier's going to get clear on the 55. That brings Grover alongside of Dozak for 4th place. So the top 3 are clear.
Yeah, and they're still trying to run up there on the outside lane, and this field's kind of getting spread out a little bit. Some of these guys are taking the easy. Matthew Rodriguez, Kyle Lewis, Michael Norman, who we saw drop back to the back of the pack a couple times, and now Garrett Gleason, who dropped all the way back there. He's in the 10th position at the moment. He's actually lost the draft, unfortunately, and so he's kind of back here, just hoping to also catch a caution with these guys, or maybe makes up some time under pit stops as Kyle Lewis tags the outside wall right in front of Austin Grover. And luckily for both of them, he gathers it back up and manages to stay onto that number 18 machine. But really close call right there as well.
Big hit there for Kyle Lewis as he's going to drop back to the 8th position. With David Duran getting the pole, leading the most laps. That's 15 bonus points that are off the table. There we go.
Try to make sure you don't get too much. Cam Caldwell going really deep there into the pit road. He may have gotten a speed penalty right there. If he didn't, he got pretty lucky there by iRacing. But you see David Duran, Mike Tellier behind Matthew Rodriguez. 3 of our championship contenders here coming in under this cycle of pit stops. And I believe all of them, they should have made it in pretty easily. Make sure you don't overshoot your pit box here as you get in to the stalls number 1 and 2 for the number 24 and the number 97. And so it looks like so far so good for all 3 of our championship contenders. Cam Caldwell, he gets out. So obviously he must have not gotten a penalty. Got pretty lucky there on the aggressive pit entries. Now, they all leave pit road together, except for Matthew Rodriguez, who may have taken tires. Unfortunately for him, he loses a lot of time. He actually took his faster pair as well, so interesting thing to note there. But unfortunately for him, he's going to lose the lead draft here.
Comes the second group, and there's going to be contact. Vincent Valvano off the nose of Austin Grover, back in front of Steven Dozak Jr. We'll see if this brings out a caution or not as the final 5 hit pit lane. And there it is. The yellow flag is indeed out. It was contact between Valvano and Grover, fighting for the same bit of track position there, heading down for pit road. And Dozak Jr., who was the leader when those pit stops were starting, he's going to end up with some front-end damage with the 38 spinning across his nose. We almost got to see a complete cycle green flag pit stops this season.
Yeah, that was the inexperience, unfortunately, on pit stops. Just, Vince Valvano, unfortunately, was not expected to see Dozak Jr. to check up to that point there, and unfortunately just got tagged there by Austin Grover, who also couldn't quite avoid him. And while, unfortunately, for Vince Valvano, he got tagged there, as you mentioned, by Steven Dozak Jr. in the right front, but luckily, Austin Grover, he was able to gather it back up before he got into the inside wall, so that definitely could have been a lot worse. But really close call there, and obviously the caution flag now kind of changes the whole cycle of things.
The 5 drivers that were on pit road prior, they were able to get down and away without losing a lap. Fortunate for them, Jason Shuey, who was the only car one lap down, would get the free pass under this yellow flag, and Kyle Lewis, as well as Steven Oziak Jr., I believe neither one of them took service because pit road was closed before they got to their pit stall, so they're going to have to come down pit road this time. Austin Grover, I believe, also is going to have to come down pit lane. Norman, on the other hand, in the 21, he was able to take service, and so he might be cycling around as the race leader. But before these pit stops again, I was going to bring up the fact with David Durand now taking those 15 bonus points off of the board for most laps led and the pole position, it makes the task even more difficult for Mike Tellier and Matthew Rodriguez. Tellier's been out in front tonight. Matthew Rodriguez, to my knowledge, has not led a lap here this evening. So right at this point in time, with the fact that it's looking like Austin Grover could easily get the most positions gained here tonight, bonus points. There's not a whole lot of bonus points left on the table for the drivers of the 57 and the 97.
Yeah, most definitely. And actually, just to point out there, Austin Grover was able to actually get into his pit stall since he was on pit road before the caution flag came out. You are allowed to pit your car, and lucky for him, that actually kind of gave him the race lead, if you will, because of the fact that those cars had already pitted. He lost a lot less time under caution under pit road, and so Kyle Lewis, who's the only guy, I believe, who did not get service there at all. He actually got involved a little bit in that incident with Steven Doziak Jr. And Vince Alvano, so he didn't get service as well, so he's low on fuel. Not entirely sure if pit road was open last time around. That's why I didn't come in, but he's yet to come down pit road here, and he's currently in the race lead.
Let's check here on Kyle Lewis, and we saw that the wreck took place ahead of him. Could just barely avoid the 38 of Alvano, who after he bounced off Doziak Jr. came back to the left. Watch here, to your point, you'll see the 83 of Austin Grover. He'll pull into his pit stall. Michael Norman in the 21, I believe, is going to do the same, but Kyle Lewis does not go into his pit stall. I'm almost wondering, is it possible that Kyle Lewis didn't even see his pit stall because his attention was on avoiding that wreck?
Yeah, I must believe that was the case. And Steven Doziak Jr., who got involved with that incident as well behind him, also did not come down and take service. And so, as you see live actually now, both those cars pulling down back onto pit road, and Austin Grover now will assume the race lead. And just as I mentioned earlier, trying to get those bonus points, he picks up 2 bonus points for leading a lap, and he'll get that secured now before the end of this race.
Also, Garrett Gleason and Matthew Rodriguez going to come back down pit road. Vincent Valvano in the 38 will come down pit lane as well. Maybe for a couple of these guys to be able to take on the faster pair. I think Lewis right there just used his faster pair. You mentioned Rodriguez used his on his pit stop. Valvano's got damage, so we'll see if he's going to take his faster pair on at this point in time. And same there for the 55 of Steven Doziak Jr. But that's going to turn the race lead over for this upcoming restart to the points leader, Austin Grover. He'll be leading Michael Norman, Mike Tellier, David Durant, and Cam Caldwell back to the green. And mentioned it before, it's worth mentioning again. Austin Grover has not found victory lane yet this season. It's been the bonus points and the consistent finishes that have put him up to the top of the point standings. You know he would love to cap off the season not only with a championship, but with a victory. How aggressive is he going to be on this upcoming restart, which is going to be, looks like now with less than 10 to go, as they're going to add another lap onto pacing here.
Yeah, it seems there's some kind of confusion with that caution flag coming out under agreeing of a pit stops. It kind of messed up the IR system a little bit, and so they're kind of sorting out at the moment. But yeah, Austin Grover, as you mentioned, holding on the race lead, definitely going to try to get everything he can. And those point swings with only 11 cars, as you mentioned earlier, that points spread system here in the TNR Superspeedway series, that changes everything. Just first to second place, I believe, was a 15-point difference, and so you know if Garrett Durand, we've seen dominate, if you will, so far through the course of this event in the first 50 laps of it. If he gets back up here and he takes over control of the race lead, that could change things very quickly, especially as bonus points he's already gathered. So obviously, Austin Grover going to try to fight with everything he's got. Luckily for him, also still has his faster pair along with most of the rest of the field. And so it's going to be a very exciting last 10 laps here.
There's a lot of data that we have to go off of to be able to sometimes determine what the future of a race can look like. I'm going to adhere to the data of the faster pair column. Only Matthew Rodriguez took on his faster pair here under this yellow flag. Well, he actually took it on before we saw the yellow flag on his pit stop. But everybody involved in that wreck, that brought out this caution did not take on their faster pair. That says to me, they all expect that this is not the last time that this caution is going to be flying here tonight.
Yeah, most definitely, and obviously, luckily for them, I also got involved in an incident under pit road speed, so it shouldn't be too bad as damage as if it was actually on the racetrack at normal race speed. But with only 9 laps to go here, pretty interesting call there. Obviously, not too much further to go. I mean, something like Taylor last week, he took his faster pair with about 15 or 10 to go, if I remember correctly, at Talladega. And drove his way back up the field, avoided a big wreck, which almost took him out of it, and then ended up winning the race when it was all said and done. And so obviously for him, he's also up here with a fairly clean race car. A lot of these guys up front are looking to just try to shop with a bit here and get everything they can.
Just quickly working the calculations here for the Durand-Grover points. If Austin Grover is able to get those 10 bonus points for most positions gained here tonight, David Durand will have to finish at least 5 positions ahead of the 83. If Grover does not get those 10 bonus points, David Durand will have to finish at least 3 positions ahead of Austin Grover. So this is going to be very interesting here in the closing stages. 9 laps to go in regulation. There is always the possibility that the season finale could go into overtime with some green-white checkers, but it's going to be Grover and Norman, Chevrolet and Ford to lead us back for the second restart of the night.
Slightly earlier jump there by Austin Grover. He gets out in front now and clear of the outside lane with Mike Tellier. David Durand, we've seen front runners all night long up front. Now Mike Tellier shoots up the middle right there around Michael Norman and tries to get around Austin Grover. Now David Durand, we kind of forced to push his championship rival here to the race lead.
You know Durand's not going to stay behind that 83 for long. If he sees a hole, if he sees a lane, he will take it. The question is, where will it be and when will it be? Cam Caldwell, who is pretty committed, is behind him. How about this? There's the lane. It's down below the WLO line. That's legal here in the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series, and Durand's going to exploit it.
Nothing Austin Grover can do right there. He kind of gets past both those guys. He's looking to make it 3 wide once again up the middle around Cam Caldwell and Garrett Gleason. Very close quarters racing here on the restart. Now David Durand all of a sudden goes from 4th to 1st. You see passes Mike Tellier and Michael Norman for the race lead as now Cam Caldwell some contact right there and they somehow saved it.
Big power moves there on that lap by David Durand. He's going to try and go back to the point. Michael Norman, though, with a rear decklet full of Garrett Gleason. Ooh, Michael with a little bit of a blink. That backed the 7 car off of his bumper. That's going to hurt the outside line. David Durand will be the beneficiary. He's back out in clean air.
And now Mike Tellier going to push that 24 machine to the race lead and try to find a way around as he gets clear of the outside lane. However, Cam Caldwell, the number 12 machine, who we saw pushing David Durand for about 20-25 laps earlier, he's now back up in that 3rd position. So Mike Tellier is kind of between a rock and a hard place here. He knows he can try to get around that 24 machine and get to the race lead, but as soon as he does, that 12 will give a push to that 24, and he'll probably try to push him as far as he can go.
Battle there for the 4th position. Kyle Lewis, Austin Grover. Right now, both of them have netted 5 positions gained during the course of this race. So both of them in line for the 10 bonus points. But if Kyle Lewis picks up 1 more spot, that knocks Austin Grover out of the running for those 10 bonus points. So keep an eye on that battle here inside of the top 5 as Mike Tellier continues to try and find a way around David Durand with 6.5 to go at Daytona.
5 cars, single file on the inside lane. The first car trying to look to the outside. Back there is Vince Valvano, the help from the Hot Wheels mobile of Michael Norman. And now Kyle Lewis sees the runner for both of them. He jumps up there on the outside trying to get around the number 12 machine of Cam Caldwell for the 3rd position. But now the top 2 kind of just continuously to stay single file on the line and starting to kind of set themselves up from the rest of the pack.
Now we're getting to the point of the race where your friends are where you find them. All the alliances we saw during the course of this race, they're all out the window. Everybody now wants to be the first one to that checkered flag, and they're going to be willing to work with whoever they have to get them to the front. You work with who helps you the most. It's David Durand, Mike Tellier, Cam Caldwell, the top 3, then Kyle Lewis and Austin Grover, the top 5. Right now projected, Austin Grover would have enough points to be able to wrap up the championship, even if David Durand was able to win this race. But still, 6 laps, 5.5 to go. Still anything can happen at this point in time before we see that white flag wave.
And who would have known within the last 5 laps, the championship finale, these guys are the most refrained we've seen them in a very long time, if not the entire season so far, just because they don't want to give up their chance of this victory too early. As now you see, they come to the 5 laps to go signal Garrett Gleason with a huge run on the outside lane. We're going to see if anybody jumps up in front of them there to try to carry them with them. Matthew Rodriguez, the sole person to use this fast spur so far during this event. He's been the guy who pushes him up front now as they go side by side with Kyle Lewis for that 4th position.
Right now, it looks like 11 points would separate David Duran from Austin Grover, but if Lewis picks up one more spot here, the championship this season would be decided by 1 point if Duran wins and Grover finishes in the 5th position. We know that things are very close when it comes to Superspeedway racing, but who would have thought 9 races later we could be looking at a single-digit championship win for whoever hoists that trophy at the end of the night. Here comes Tellier to the top side. He's got Garrett Gleason and Matthew Rodriguez trying to win back-to-back races in the end of the year.
Cam Carlo now we're going to continue to fill that gap and push David Duran now to the inside. Is now Kyle Lewis going to try to help those couple cars up front, as well as now the outside lane is the stacked line. It has more cars to the inside, and Mike Taylor going to try to use that to his advantage to get a good run here and try to challenge the race win.
6 up top, 5 on the bottom. Inside line gets the momentum there through 1 and 2. Watch the top side, accordion back up here though, with big momentum on the back straightaway. Tellier alongside of Lewis for 3rd. Now alongside of Cam Caldwell for 2nd. Won't quite be able to get to David Durand here in turns 3 and 4. We'll see what they can do through these final corners and onto the tri-oval.
David Duran just trying to do everything he can to maintain this race lead, and he knows, as you mentioned, Austin Grover back there caught up in the 6th position now. He's not going to be able to hold on to the championship points lead at the end of this event if David Duran can stay up here. So Cam Caldwell locked the rear bumper, trying to help his teammate out there in the number 24 machine with just 3 laps to go. Mike Taylor trying to do everything he can to try to stop that and try to get this victory lane with the number 7 machine around his back bumper.
Mike Tellier at this point in time could very well be out of the championship picture with the fact that the 24 is running where he is out in front. But that's not going to dissuade him from trying to join Matthew Rodriguez as a multi-time winner here in the debut season of the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. Caldwell still remains committed to the back bumper of the 24. Mike Tellier a little squirrely there on the top side. Garrett Gleason having trouble lining up the bumpers. Rodriguez doing the same, 3rd on that outside line. They're coming around to 2 laps to go. 5 miles left here at Daytona International Speedway.
The intensity is at its highest it's been all race long, as now we're in the closing stages of this championship. David Duran, if you thought he was going to block earlier in the race, he's going to try to do everything he can to defend this race win away from Mike Tellier, one of his championship contenders. He's looking to try to just get some luck here. He needs some bad luck to happen with the number 24 machine up front. But now Kyle Lewis, he's in the 3rd car on the inside lane. He gets clear. He looks to the outside of Cam Caldwell for that 2nd position.
And pick up that outside line that was losing momentum on the back straightaway. Now tries to tuck back down. There's no lane available. Tellier puts him in the middle. Caldwell to his left. Rodriguez going to go up the middle to help push Kyle Lewis, though. Will they make it back around to the white flag? They're a couple 100 feet out of turn 4 to that start-finish line in the middle of the tri-oval. Looks like they're going to make it. Lewis gets alongside David Durand. This could be the battle to the checkers. 2 more miles to go.
Matthew Rodriguez trying to do everything he can to push the 18 machine up on that outside lane. This is where we're most likely to see any bit of contact that can kind of send this all into a huge downward spiral for David Duran. He's trying to hold on this race lead. How aggressive contact! Kyle Lewis gets turned. He's on the outside wall, and now Matthew Rodriguez takes to that top position. The top 3 in the inside lane are clear for the race lead.
Kyle Lewis out of the picture for this victory. Here comes Austin Grover. Last-ditch effort to the inside of Cam Caldwell for 2nd place. Tellier's going to push him. They got to merge back up. Oh, Grover hard into the wall. There's a big wreck back there. Remember, everyone was on the lead lap. There are 11 spots up for grabs. David Duran's going to get P1. Where's Grover going to be? This could be for the win and the championship. Durand takes the win. Let's follow Grover, who right now is being scored in the 10th position. I think that's where he's going to cross the line.
Yeah, unfortunately, just the worst end of that whole deal right there is Mike Tellier in front of him. He's actually stopped. Not sure if his engine is exploded or if he's trying to let him go. Austin Grover come across the start-finish line here, I believe in the 8th position, and unfortunately, I just don't think that'll be enough for the math.
I don't think it will either. You know, you take all the bonus points out, and Austin Grover is going to lose a total of 55. No, correction. He finished in 9th, so he's going to lose a total of 60 points to David Durand. Durand came into this race 46 points behind the 83. So with the victory, add on the bonus points he picked up here tonight, your winner and champion here this evening at Daytona is the driver of the 24, David Durand.
And what dominating performance he put on here tonight at Daytona and took that championship with commanding fashion. And we mentioned last week at Talladega, no driver had led the most laps and gone on to complete the deal and win the race. And obviously David Duran led about 40 to 50 laps here tonight. Just absolutely put on a clinic here, about as well as he could for a plate race. Racing for that championship, did exactly what he needed to do, picked up every bonus point he possibly could, and he'll now break that record and be crowned as the #1 champion in the TNR Superspeedway Series.
It's his second win on the season, which ties him with Matthew Rodriguez for most wins on the year, the only two multi-time winners on the season. You said the word dominant here for David Duran tonight. Started on the pole, led the most laps of this race, did everything that he had to do. Yes, there was a late race caution where he had to do a lot of defending, but we saw even in the first half of this race, he was able to block the runs when they were generated and keep the entire field in his rearview mirror. Well-deserved victory here tonight for David Duran. He'll get to hoist a victory trophy and a championship trophy at the same time here tonight in Victory Lane.
Yeah, definitely was a little. Excuse me there. It definitely was a little easy there. Cover to the checkered at least with that wreck behind him. Obviously taking out everybody who could have fought him for that race win, but obviously had to put himself in that position from the start of the race and did everything he absolutely had to do and absolutely executed all night long.
We'll be going back and looking at the replays here when we talk with our top three finishers here tonight, but here are the finishing results from this evening's event. You can see that pretty much from Duran back to Kyle Lewis were maybe the drivers that got through the incident. I think Lewis actually might have gotten a piece of it there. Remember, he got into the wall up off of turn 2 on the final lap, so maybe only 4 drivers from Duran down to Valvano were able to make it through that last lap carnage. Last car to finish in this race was Steven Doziak Jr. in the 55 of the 11 cars that took the green here this evening. But David Duran, will be talking with him down in Victory Lane in just a moment. See if we could talk with some of the other drivers that finished on the podium. And let's begin with third place finisher Garrett Gleason. Garrett, Lucas, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, guys, how's it going?
Going good. I mean, man, I'll tell you what, this race kind of reminded me an awful lot of the race where we saw you go to Victory Lane at Talladega, or rather Legacy Daytona about 3 weeks ago. I mean, just how crazy was it out there on that final run to the checkered flag? You guys have done a great job with long green flag runs up to that point, even almost saw a cycle green flag pit stops, but we kind of got the feeling that the intensity was going to pick up in the latter stages.
Yeah, the intensity was crazy there, especially at the end. Early on, we could not get that high line moving. I mean, Matt Rodriguez was trying his best, but he had so much damage. And then with the teammates trying to help each other win the championship, nobody really wanted to have a run there at the end. So people were just shuffling like crazy. Like for a while there, I was trying to push the 97 to the win, but then the guys in the chat said he don't want to win. He wanted his teammate to win. So that kind of took the wind out of my sails, but happy with a third place finish.
We're going to be taking the I was just going to say, we're going to be taking the onboard with you here. And in a moment, we're going to get your reaction of what you saw out the windshield.
Oh boy, hold on. Let me pull up the broadcast, guys. Don't put me on the spot here. I won't know what's going on.
Okay. Running, it looks like around the 10th position at the time. And maybe being at the back, not such a bad thing.
It's always my strategy at these plate races to try to survive to the end. But these guys, like you guys alluded to earlier, they did a heck of a job keeping this race green. And other than the yellow on pit stops, we did a pretty good job. But I like to be in the high lane. I've always felt safer up there. And when this stuff just happened in front of me, I just figured I'd go low and hope for the best, stay in it. And I was actually hoping the 3 and I had enough momentum here I could push him, because a win would have meant a lot to him. And I just nipped Vinny here coming to the start finish. So all in all, fun race. Gotta thank Mike and Matt for everything they do, and FRN for everything they do for the series. It's a blast. I hope we could get a couple more guys for next season.
I cut you off there, Lucas. I'll let you ask your question now.
Yeah, all good. I was actually about to ask you. You mentioned that championship battle that you're kind of helping your teammates out there, trying to figure out, I guess, who wanted to win the championship and felt like they were in the best position. Seth mentioned that point earlier in the night. Racing those guys on the championship, obviously, the points differences kind of made it a little bit less stressful for everybody else in the event, knowing that there wasn't quite as much on the line for every single car in the field. But how is it to kind of go out there at a plate track and race guys who are trying to race for a championship and have been there all season long? Obviously, not to take away from anybody else in the entire rest of the field racing for a race win. But what is it out there, the nerves kind of knowing the risk of involved behind making moves in those guys?
Yeah, it definitely gets to your nerves a little bit, especially early on in the race. I made sure I wasn't going to like bump draft someone at any point. Like I figured the first 40 laps, the first 2/3 of this race, I wasn't going to bump draft somebody, especially somebody that could potentially turn into one of these guys that are fighting for this championship. And the administrators did a good job before the race, letting everybody know, hey, these are the 4 guys racing for the championship. Don't be stupid around them. So, and that again, another testament to them as administrators. They had this thing pretty much locked down from a rules perspective. So, hey, it's so much fun out there though. Regardless of if guys are points racing or racing for wins, like anybody can win these things at any given time. So it's really an amazing series.
Great way to end off your year. Obviously, we mentioned the win you had here this season at the Legacy version of Daytona. The third place performance here tonight finishes you out 6th in the point standings for the season. Great season overall for you, Garrett. Congratulations. And now we'll give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, I want to thank FRN and obviously Matthew Rodriguez for all he does for the series, and Mike as his co-admin. And I'm a little disappointed that my picture is not up on the graphic, guys. So I know I submitted one, so I might need to get that corrected for next season. But thank you to FRN, Dunn Raceway Park, and everyone that puts their time and effort into this league, because I really appreciate it as the head of TNR. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next season.
That's Garrett Gleason, third place here tonight in the season finale, in the debut season of the TNR Sunday Superspeedway. Once again, congratulations, and yeah, best of luck in the upcoming season starting in mid-November.
Thanks, guys.
All right, how about second place, Jason Shuey, who started this race from dead last and almost pulled off this victory. Jason, Lucas, and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Man, I mean, we saw 2 drivers that were on the back straightaway in the 9th and 10th position cross the start-finish line in 2nd and 3rd. One of the drivers was you. You are in the 9th position when you cross the start-finish line. You bring it home runner-up here tonight. Now, I was talking just moments ago with Garrett Gleason. I said at least at the time it looked like being at the back was a safe place to be. Gave you an avenue on the apron to avoid that big wreck. Do you concur with that? And, I mean, what did it look like out your windshield? Did you think you'd get through it?
I just went to the apron and I seen they were all wrecking. I figured they'd stay high, and I went low and ended up getting second out of it.
Yeah, we actually saw you running up front there towards the end of the run, I believe, there before those pit stops occurred in that green flag run, and unfortunately got out the outside of our retaining wall trying to get out of the way. Just talk about during that run. Obviously, we mentioned earlier we've not seen green flag pit stops at all during the course of the season, and during that run, you lost the draft about half a lap down there. How relieved were you to see that caution flag come out to try to help you obviously get yourself into a podium position near the end of the race?
Yeah, I was relieved that it came out. I was hoping for a caution to come out at the end so I could get caught back up. So I figured I'd pit early and get fuel and hope that something would happen, and it did.
Were you surprised by the fact that we ended up having those long green flag runs? I mean, at the end of the race, we thought maybe we'd see a caution come out and send us into overtime. That didn't happen. We went about 25 laps there after the first caution, had those green flag pit stops begin there. I mean, I'm looking here, and the biggest shock to me is out of the 11 drivers that raced here tonight, only one of them took on a faster pair during the course of this 60-lap event. So with this being a finale to end out the season, everybody trying to get a W and a championship on the line, were you surprised just how clean this race actually turned out to be?
Yeah, I was. It's with this few cars, it started to get strung out there towards the end.
Well, Jason, a great run for you here tonight to cap off the season. The runner-up finish moves you up 4 spots to finish inside the top 5, 5th. The overall season standing, so congratulations on that. We know that during the course of the season, we've seen you be able to get those 10 bonus points with the net gain of starting to finishing positions. You do that here tonight, up 9 spots from your 11th position here tonight. Man, a great way to end off your season. A nice exclamation point. Now we're going to hand the mic over to you for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
All right, well, thank you very much. I want to thank FRN for broadcasting, Firehouse Grill, First Choice Computers, Pecky's Auto Body, Little Sound Car Wash, and Larry's Lawnmower Repair for sponsoring. So, thanks, then.
Jason Shuey, he's your runner-up finisher here tonight in the season finale of Season 1 of the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. Congratulations once again, Jason, and best of luck in carrying this momentum into the upcoming season in November.
All right, thanks.
All right, let's go down to victory lane, talk with our race winner and champion. He came into this race 46 points back. He leaves Daytona 29 points to the good. Let's talk with David Durand. Hey, David, it's Lucas and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir. How you guys doing?
Man, race winner and series champion in one lovely package here tonight at Daytona. But, you know, Lucas brought up the word, and it just exemplified the performance for you here tonight. Dominant. Got to the front with the pole position. Never looked back. Even when you faded outside of the top three, you found your way right back up to the front again. Kept everybody in your rearview mirror. But it couldn't have been as easy as it looked up here in the broadcast booth, right?
No, not really. We had a really timed up the strategy pretty quickly. The goal was to try to lead every lap. We did not want to look back at all. The goal was to lead every single lap and make the blocks, and just try to stay up front the whole race and end up winning it. So I mean that was our big time strategy right there, gentlemen.
Obviously, you know, we mentioned earlier in the race we were trying to follow the point system and you know, try to keep track of who was where. And Austin Grover trying to get the bonus points there for the most positions gained. Obviously, with your teammates kind of helping you out there, do you have any knowledge of where Austin Grover really was besides just a relative, or what his kind of point situation was there heading to finish the race, or you just focused up front trying to secure the victory?
I was just more focused trying to stay up front. I knew Grover had a solid day. And it turns out he got caught up in the last lap wreck. But, you know, we weren't worried about where he was at. Our main goal was just to stay up front and never look back.
Obviously, we made the mention that the announcement was made that this series was going to be coming back for a second season starting in the second week of November. We're going to be the guy everybody's gunning for, the defending champion heading into that brand new season. I mean, what's the strategy now that you got this championship under your belt, knowing that you've set the bar that everybody's going to try and meet next time?
That goal will not change. Just try to lead it most laps and try to at least try to win every race. That's the mindset we bring every Sunday. So that is our goal. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of guys gunning for me, which I kind of expect. So I mean, lucky that I got myself, Mike, and Cam and Alonso if he plans the races next season, that we're gonna have a pretty strong team for season 2.
Well, David, congratulations on not only becoming the second multi-time winner on the season with your second victory here tonight, but also getting that championship here this evening. It's not easy to be the guy chasing for the championship heading into a finale, but man, you definitely had a game strategy coming in, and you executed it to perfection. We're now going to hand the mic over to you for some victory lane and championship. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
Thank you guys for broadcasting the races. You guys do a heck of a job. It's so entertaining to watch. Just want to thank Radius Racing, Mike Hellier, and Cam Caldwell. We had a really good strategy. We stayed up front. We did not look back. So that's pretty much it, gentlemen. I hope you guys are turning for season 2, because it was really, really fun for you guys to broadcast these races.
That's David Durand here tonight. He is your winner at Daytona, and he is your champion in the first season of the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. Job well done, David. Congratulations. Go enjoy not only the victory, but also this championship here tonight.
All right, thank you, guys.
And the conclusion to a phenomenal season takes place here and now. All the questions coming into Daytona are finally answered, and be a more unusual season finale here, Lucas, in the fact only 2 cautions flew during the course of this race. We almost got to see a complete cycle green flag pit stops, which we have not seen the entirety of the year. They made it back there to that white flag to finish the thing out. Yes, they had the last lap wreck, but there were a couple of times I was fully expecting we were going to see this finale go into overtime.
Yeah, we really only had the only multi-car accident we really had was the last lap wreck, as you mentioned. We only had those two-car incidents between Rodriguez and Kyle Lewis on the backstretch there around lap 15, and then that incident coming on the pit road between the 38 and the 55. So that's the thing with points racing on that play track, is that while a lot of people believe it's just more aggression, you kind of have to be more methodical in your moves, and you can't really risk tearing your stuff up too early in the event, obviously, using that fast repair and kind of getting yourself behind your championship contenders. And so while a lot of it definitely, well, at the end of the race, especially with nothing left to gain, it is full aggression. We saw that there with that accident in turn 3, unfortunately taking Austin Grover and others completely out of contention. But yeah, it's definitely a lot more methodical. We saw guys be a lot more content in trying to help their teammates out, of course. And that definitely plays a huge factor into the championship battle. And definitely was not expected to have our cleanest race ever, but that's just kind of, I guess, a result of that points battle at the same time.
I brought up the point there to David Duran that he's kind of now set the bar for the upcoming second season. If you look at the numbers here for the season, Austin Grover was the most consistent driver during the course of the year. But David Duran was able to find victory lane a total of 2 times, and he netted 83 bonus points. Second highest bonus point gainer was Jason Shuey, and he only had 51. So do you think other drivers are going to take notice of what David Duran did here this season, the finding victory lane, the racking up those bonus points, and that's going to be their game plan when the green flag flies in the upcoming second season?
Yeah, most definitely. And obviously, we've seen these guys be really competitive every single race. David Duran was, from the start of the race, he was blocking every single race he's mentioned in the season. Upward even he started kind of having that approach, and obviously it paid off for him. And all these guys are going to kind of notice that week in and week out, and they're going to see that he, wins the championship. That's exactly what they're going to try to at least have some sort of mindset heading into the next season. And he's of course going to be the guy that everybody's kind of trying to stop from, continuing to rack up wins and rack up championships. And so definitely, plate racing is all about the people around you more than anything else. And so teammates can play a huge factor into it. But if you kind of make more people, appreciative of their own runs and trying to, stop you from having another great run and feel like you're a force to reckon with, it definitely can kind of hurt you at the end at the same time. So it's definitely going to be really exciting, and I'm super excited to see what happens next season.
Well, in almost typical Superspeedway Series fashion, the championship basically came down to the final couple of corners on the final lap on the final race of the season. David Duran dominant here tonight, able to pick up the victory and the championship. Austin Grover going to have to try and wait until next year to be able to win the championship, as will everybody else. A lot of drivers are able to find victory lane during the course of the season, but it can only be one that hoists the championship trophy at the end, and it was David Duran here tonight. With what we've seen here in this debut season, certainly looking like we are in for a really good second season of the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series, and we hope you guys will be joining us once again. That season will be starting on November the 14th, so we hope to see you then. Lucas, a great way to end off this season, a champion crowned here under the lights at Daytona. I appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Absolutely, Seth. That was a pleasure.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of the season finale of the debut season of the TNR Sunday Superspeedway Series. For Lucas Cram, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, folks, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.